Lately, I've been feeling a reluctance to go to the easel. And I don't think it's an art block because I still have a lot of ideas. But my reluctance happens. I see the easel, I see my work I have in progress, I see a commission that I have pressure on, and the calling to finish it feels subdued. It's a weird place to be in, and I feel like this is something that a lot of artists go through, a season of creativity. Hey, friends and foes. Welcome to Brushwork Podcast. My name is Stephanie Scott, and today we're talking about seasons of creativity. I feel like creativity comes in waves. You have moments where you're super inspired, you have moments where you're getting the work done, and you have moments of quiet and of rest. And sometimes these seasons last a single week, sometimes they last a few months, and sometimes they are years long at a time. The last 3 years, I have felt a ton of motivation to paint. Like every waking moment of my time is thinking, oh, I can't wait to paint. I can't wait to get to the easel. I can't wait to work on this project or think about this next project or blah, 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 blah. And I have had so much enthusiasm for painting. But lately, ever since I finished Sleep on the Floor, which was that big painting I made about the grief of my friend, I've been feeling a lack. And it's not that I don't have any ideas, because I do. I feel like I'm brimming with ideas of things to paint. But the urgency isn't quite there. The urgency to make art isn't. Instead, it's been lending itself to other places. I wonder if you've ever felt like this. You feel like, okay, I have a lot of things I could try. I have a lot of materials I could play with, and I have a lot of like gumption to make things. And yet the almost prickling of my skin to get to work, the dreams I would have about making art aren't really there. Have you ever felt this way? The last time I felt this way, this lack of urgency, was about 5 years ago, before I even streamed on Twitch. And it was because a big life-changing thing had happened. And this time feels more nuanced and a little bit different and a little bit more elastic. Yes, a big life-changing event happened last year for me. The death of my friend. I went to a month-long residency. I put in lots of effort around my Zodiac series that I did. And I finished a really cool project with my friend Julia with a quilt that she made and I designed. It was really fantastic. And now I'm here. I've got one commission on deck, and I have 0 painting things that I want to do next. And the drive is missing there. Instead, my ideas have been leading towards other things. And maybe it's because I've been feeling more success in sales in other things, success in many different ways, than I have been feeling around my painting. And that's what's driving this new behavior. But I also think it's an overarching sort of season I'm in. The things I do feel excited about, that I have plentiful project ideas for, is absolutely brushwork. I'm starting a new series of course reviews. I've got some interviews lined up that I'm very excited about, and I have just a lot more drive to work on this in the mornings. When I wake up, I'm like, today's a podcast day. I get like all excited. And then some other days I'm like, okay, this is a studio day. And my excitement, it takes a little bit, it takes a couple starts of the match to get a flame to start, you know? It takes some tools that my normal motivation tactics aren't quite living up to. And instead of trying to force it to happen, I'm trying to find tools that will allow the physical creativity, the literal painting aspect of my work to occur. I'm doing something else. I'm letting it have its rest. Yes, I have a commission right now. I'm looking at it at the wall here, and it's a start. And I've talked to my client, and I kind of explained to her, I was like, I've been feeling a reluctance to paint, and this is going to take longer than I thought it will, but I don't feel like I'm quitting painting because it's not that extreme, but that is a question that some people have asked me about when I've been kind of expressing these feelings, because I identify as myself. I'm like, no, I am a painter. Before I am a podcaster, before I'm a Twitch streamer, before I'm all these other things, I'm a painter. It's just that I need to allow myself to have the time to come back to it. Giving myself the space to come back to painting, the space to come back to, actually, first off, before we come back to it, the space to leave painting for a moment feels like the right move, but also feels like this terrifying thing that I'm saying. Because painting is how I support myself financially. It's how it's like one giant arm of the umbrella that is my art revenue. And it's scary to think, okay, I'm going to put down my brushes for a little bit. As I'm recording this episode now, it's May 22nd that I'm recording this. By the time you're listening to this, I will be on a 2-week hiatus from my studio. I'm taking a little bit of a break, and I wonder how I'll feel at the end of it. Part of my kind of rehab back into painting is going to be the Summer Art Marathon, and one of the reasons I felt very compelled to create the Summer Art Marathon and host other people was to find my creativity again in painting in a way that was baby steps, like small bits. If you're unfamiliar with the Summer Art Marathon and you're wondering, what is this? It is 92 days of working on a project a little bit every day and sharing with it with some friends who are also doing this project with you. For me, my project is to make transcriptions, which are copies of masterworks in very small formats. And I'm going to do it in a material I'm not really used to, which is gouache. I haven't really worked with this material at all. I'm a little bit nervous. I'm excited to try it. It was very fun to go to the art store today and pick up a couple extra colors. Who doesn't like an art store trip? But the idea is, I know that to get through an art block, which again, I don't think this is an art block, but I know to get through it, you need to simply make. And I think having a feeling that I am a beginner in something, which is in gouache painting for me, and then in the subject, which is copies of masterworks, which is something I haven't done since I was a student at Cornish, I think it'll be refreshing. And I think it'll be something that aids my creativity and the willingness to come back to my painting. I think it'll teach me things about composition. I think it'll teach me things about color control and this new material, which I love being a beginner at things and like not knowing what to do. I think it's very fun. So I have hope that my drive for painting will come back. To aid myself in this transition, I'm taking financial pressure off of my paintings. I will probably pick up another job at some point for a while. I will move my efforts and revenue onto the podcast a bit more. You might start seeing more sponsored things or advertisements or stuff like that. I started running ads on Twitch and trying to just take some of the pressure off literally making art, right? So we're turning to printmaking, we're turning into product making, like the tote bags that I've just released. They're very cute and I like them. But having the flexibility and the elasticity of healing happening feels good. There's a moment for artists, I think, when we bare our soul, right? And when we show our story and we show every reason why we make things, and it feels very like raw and it feels very vulnerable. And I did that recently, and I did it for many, many months. And to come back into myself, to come back into my enthusiasm for painting, I think it'll happen, and I think it'll happen faster than I intend. One thing I'm really noticing about this kind of lull in urgency is that I should probably be planning for this sort of thing to happen every couple of years. That knowing that I have a wave of excitement ahead of me, knowing that I have a way of more or less steadiness that kind of plateaus and then a dip again where I'm currently where I'm at, that sort of overarching year, like many year sort of wave pattern that's happening is something I can predict. And that feels nice for the future, knowing that, okay, things are going to get better. Then I'll probably have a moment like this. And knowing how to take care of my creativity feels good. It's not like I want to try and prevent this kind of lull from happening, because I do think it's just part of living. It's part of being a human, one of our many cycles that we are as human beings. Part of me hates to say this next word, but I do kind of want to utilize this sort of lull in motivation that's happening. And I want to utilize it in a way to pursue my other interests and to let myself hang on to other things and try new stuff and be more experimental and not get hung up on the fact that I'm not painting right now. Do you give yourself permission to do that sort of thing for your work? Can you afford that sort of elastic grace? It feels weird to talk about, and it feels weird to think about, but I'm looking forward to this break, and I'm looking forward to reading more. I'm looking forward to hearing about other artists and kind of copying their brushwork. And I'm looking forward to the experiment that is the Summer Art Marathon. There's one thing I really love about the books we've been reading lately for Art Book Club, and it's the fact that over and over I've been finding the statement that art making and creativity never truly stop. Even when you are no longer picking up the brush and you're not literally drawing something out, you're not carving things, or you're not making music or whatever that is, creativity is ongoing, and it happens whether we like it or not. And that feels reassuring that I can take a more literal break and it will come back, and it just happens. It's because we are creative beings on this planet. It feels good, right? If you were in a place where you're thinking, I really want to take a break from this kind of artwork, I would consider it. Consider taking that break. Consider taking the break from whatever it is that you have been diligent about in the past, and think about, okay, how do we shift things? How do we pivot? How do we move pressures from one thing onto something else? How do we leave something in a satisfied and very thoughtful manner, not just exiting the studio one day and forgetting to come back, but in a planned way? And from here, I'm thinking about, okay, how do I want to return to my art in the future? How do you want to return to yours? I'm going to be using the Summer Art Marathon as a segue back into oil painting. When I come back from my break, I'm going to be continuing to work on my what's it called? My commission, which is on my easel right now. And I have actually written down my thoughts about the painting, about what I want to have happened. So I have some sort of guidelines for what to do when I return. So I'm not leaving myself hopeless, because the worst thing to do is to come back from a break from creating and just being like, okay, the world's your oyster. It's too much. It's too much pressure. So I do have something to ease myself back into it. And I'm looking forward to be surprised about what I want to make after this. Do I want to take this new series of work, which was called the Shimmer Collection for me, and do I want to push that forward? Do I want to do something completely different? Do I want to start thinking about more quilt making, which, spoilers, I'm really thinking about making more quilt designs of my artwork because I think it's fun. And that's the sort of ideas I want to be chasing. But right now, I gotta let myself pause. We gotta let ourselves take a moment and inhale and exhale and chase our other pursuits. So I hope you're excited to see more effort put into Brushwork Podcast and more videos coming out and more just casual videos, vlogging styles, maybe. Who knows? Because I'm very interested in content creation right now and the podcast and doing other things with it. So that's where I'm at. And that's why I'm pausing painting for a moment. If you are interested in the Summer Art Marathon, there are 3 versions. There's easy, medium, and hard. Easy starts again on July 1st. You should join us. I'll put a link to that episode of Brushwork in the show notes. And thanks for listening, and thanks for supporting me in my work. I would appreciate a thumbs up or a subscribe or whatever the mechanic is, wherever you're listening to this. You're the best, friends and foes. Make good choices. I'll see you on the flip side. Bye.